statement. I now give the floor to His Excellency Prak Sokhonn, Senior Minister, Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of Cambodia.
Madame la Présidente, j'adresse...
Madam President, I should like to cordially congratulate His Excellency Mr. Peter Thompson of the Republic of Fiji on his election as President of the 71st General Assembly. Representing a country that is so famous owing to the quality of the sport of rugby, someone from such a country who is now leading our work gives us great confidence that we will be successful in our endeavors. I should like to join those who have expressed gratitude to His Excellency Mr. Ban Ki-moon, who has spared no effort in his capacity as Secretary General to preserve peace where peace is threatened and to attempt to address areas of the world plagued by violence. The limits that there are a number of limits that are confronting the United Nations, but this only further convinces us that the United Nations must be reformed. Our General Assembly, this General Assembly, provides us an opportunity to take stock of humankind and our planet. Each and every one of us must make an effort to express and discuss the concerns of humankind and talk about the efforts that we are making to face existing challenges. We are the voice of the peoples of the world. But we would not be credible if we said that everything in the world was going very well. We must note that significant progress has been made in science and technology, but this progress has not benefited the peace and well-being of humankind. One word can summarize the tragedy of our world, and that word is violence. Violence from war, terrorist violence, violence towards civilians, and dramatic violence towards the children of the world, but also violence to other living species which are disappearing at a very fast rate and in great numbers. Violence to our planet, and this is jeopardizing the survival of humankind itself. These are the challenges we are facing today. How can it be that in the 21st century we still find ourselves facing these challenges? It is not enough to simply look at these challenges from a distance. We must understand them and we must react. Our generations, and particularly future generations, must have a better world. They deserve a better world than the world of today. I would like to focus in my intervention on several themes. I would first of all like to address collective security. The world has been stricken by an unleashing of a series of conflicts ravaging the Middle and the Near East, but also conflicts in other regions of the world. The world continues to be anguished by new tensions which are emerging in other strategic areas of our globe. There are catastrophic consequences from these conflicts around the world, and often they culminate in great destabilization of states and regions. The world became unipolar after 1991 and has since that time moved towards becoming a more multipolar world, which naturally means that strong resistance will emerge and concerning types of behavior will also be observed. Is it normal that large countries with high population and which are economically powerful are absent as members of the Security Council? Obviously, the system of collective security that was put into place in 1945 and which was adapted to our bipolar world in the wake of the Cold War is today very much exhausted. A small country such as my own is often feels pressure to choose one side or another and tries to understand or reach understandings with other countries to give a voice to those whose voices are not heard. We want to work with all countries in a spirit of goodwill, in a constructive spirit, to strike a new global balance that respects the realities of the 21st century. When tensions do emerge, we believe that our role is not to become embroiled in those tensions, but to contribute to dialogue and to the quest for some type of resolution that will be based on the peaceful settlement of such disputes. Current events force me to address the issue of terrorism. The issue that must be addressed specifically here is that of the root cause of this terrorism. This is fanaticism. Is it not the violent expression of a type of anger? And this anger must, I think, be analyzed. There are too many injustices in our world, too many inequalities, and often decisions are not taken in a balanced fashion. International law must be respected. It must be imposed on all parties and not just on a few. With regard to religion, each government must ensure, as we have successfully done so in Cambodia, to ensure that there is a peaceful and tolerant, respectful coexistence among all faiths, people of all faiths. How can we not look at the tragedy of the Palestinian people whose rights have been so violated for 70 years? How can we not understand that this would lead to a revolt in the Arab world? And how can we believe none other than this would only lead to hate? This denial of rights that has been inflicted on an entire people for decades now is something that we need to think about very deeply when we look at the discourse about our universal values and international law. We need to have greater credibility. A rapid reflection, just a quick comment on the economy. We now have sufficient experience to look at the globalization, the wave of globalization that began with the World Trade Organization agreements and the free trade agreements that ensued thereafter. This experience has allowed us to make great progress through the liberalization of markets, but it has also shown us that there are real dangers that emerge when corporations are given rights that allow them to conduct their business in any way they see fit. There is permanent, ongoing blackmail, and this only undermines the economies of some countries such as my own. We are working very hard to improve working conditions and to improve the standard of living, which remains quite low. Sometimes treaties are not respected, and it is an undeniable truth that we cannot trick our planet. COP21 must lead to concrete actions taken by all parties. If this does not occur, there will be a terrible and unstoppable consequence. This will lead to a series of destructive environmental phenomena that will also create new levels of suffering. I would now like to turn to the Sustainable Development Goals. The adoption of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development confirms a series of very ambitious objectives. But we need to have a corresponding level of ambition to be commensurate with this true political will that has been shown. I would here like to highlight the responsibility of wealthy countries which have the necessary resources to make these goals a reality. Since 1990, it is true that the world has made great progress in terms of human development. The figures provided by UNDP, I think, are worthy of our attention. There are more than 2 billion people living in poverty in the world, and 1.2 billion people live on less than $1.25 per day. If we take into consideration these two figures alone, the 17 SDGs become even more urgent. I would like to conclude by speaking about my country, Cambodia. International institutions and Western parliamentarians have pointed the finger sometimes and tried to lay blame. I am here before you not as an accused party. I am speaking to you as a country that is often judged negatively, and even more often it is misunderstood and not recognized, particularly in the Western world. I am speaking with confidence here, and many in the international community refuse to, they confuse the international community with the Western community and its very judgments, or they conflate the two. I am speaking to you as a survivor of the atrocities and the horrors wreaked upon our population by Pol Pot. I am a survivor of a country that was transformed, into immense forced labor camps. After having been completely destroyed by bombers of the U.S. Air Force, our country was forced through a number of instances of great suffering by one of the cruelest regimes in the 20th century. I must therefore recall that there was a state that wreaked havoc in Cambodia in 1979. After only Vietnam responded to the call of those who were fleeing the genocidal regime in my country. Our population of 8 million inhabitants in 1970 was reduced to some 4.5 million by 1979. I would also like to note that in 1979 in Cambodia, there remained only 8 jurists, where previously there had been 750, 45 doctors, where there had been 450, 7,000 teachers, where there had been 22,000. In 1979, the survivors were in a very debilitated physical state and an extremely abject mental state. Nevertheless, they were still punished for having been freed by a country that did not do anything to please this coalition. Over 11 years, it imposed on this completely destroyed country and on this population of traumatized survivors, it imposed a terrible embargo that prohibited all development aid. We did not have anything. We were deprived of everything. Why, then, would you want to bring up the past? Perhaps this is the question that you ask. But I wish to say that I am bringing it up because it is a past that is not yet in the past. How can we not understand that this past continues to very deeply affect the present? How can we not understand that the past continues to weigh upon us today? We are talking about human beings here, our human resources. In the West, some NGOs, some media, and some governments often describe our weaknesses as crimes of the state. With the Paris Agreement, we have been asked to accept a perfect model of democracy, and this does not take into account the fact that some other countries have a different approach. we often find ourselves in a situation in which our opposition is committing very serious crimes. I would also like to talk about our healthcare and our infrastructure. We have made significant progress in the area of education as well. As far as healthcare is concerned, we have successfully fought HIV/AIDS and malaria. We have undertaken a long and difficult struggle against corruption. Our Ministry of the Environment and Agriculture are making efforts to correct the mistakes that have been made in terms of forestry licenses. The level of poverty has dropped every year by 1%, and since 1994, our average growth rate has exceeded 7%. In Cambodia, we are addressing the issues that can truly undermine sustainable development, for example, mines and explosive remnants of war. We are working to eradicate such devices. This is the 18th, as part of the 18th sustainable goal of Cambodia. And this was also the case with the MDGs. Our country has lived through a painful period. We have considerable experience as a result in demining, and we have been working in this area since 2006 with peacekeeping operations, which have sent demining contingents. More than 900 women and men of these contingents, including engineers and doctors and military police from Cambodia, are currently working in Lebanon, Mali, Central African Republic, the Sudan, and South Sudan. With regard to climate change, I am pleased to announce that we just completed the procedure of ratifying the Paris Accords. We have known the horrors of war, and more than many, we are very well aware of the price of peace. And we give peace precedence in all circumstances, as we do this peaceful settlement of conflict. Our exceptionally difficult past, has given us the strength to be a part and parcel of the network of states that are committed to preventing mass crimes. In that regard, we have designated the individual who will be our national correspondent for the responsibility to protect network proposed by the United Nations. Thank you very much, Madam President.
I thank the Senior Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of Cambodia for his statement. I now give the floor to Her Excellency Maxine Pamela